getting his brain to tell him to break out of there. Now that's beneficial because he does get some really key first downs when he does that. But I just kind of need him to complete some passes. The Eagles have gotten away with running the football, and they did it with kind of a simple formula. And I think it was aided by the schedule a little bit last year. But it's a passing league. I mean, let's face it, he's going to have to be better at that. His numbers weren't good. His rankings weren't good. So they've kind of given him a better platform to do that. And we'll see if it happens. I guess the reports early on aren't that great. So I don't know. This is a wait and see for me. I'm like right in the middle with Jalen Hurts.
Mega Mac guys here on Birds 365. Appreciate you jumping aboard with us as we do our next guest. Let's see. Started in print, went to radio, television. Now he'll be streaming his life away with us here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. Oh, you've only been listening to him for some way, shape, or form for 30 years. Mike Missinelli comes aboard with us here on Birds 365. It looks like the summer's treating you okay, Missinelli. You got a nice tan working there.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's the Italian side. I go out in the sun and I get tan, fortunately.
Yeah.
But how you doing, Jody? How you doing, John? You guys
Doing
okay?
well, Mike. You could see, the Irish in my side. You could see I step outside.
You're talking to two white Irishmen there, yes, Mikey.
Exactly.
It doesn't take much to out-tan us.
Yeah.
I'm kind of recovering. Jody, you'll love this story. I don't know. Are you still playing basketball occasionally?
A little bit, but not a lot.
All right, so I hadn't played for a really long time, and this friend of mine who has done some handiwork convinced me to come out and play in this 4-on-4 thing. This guy purchased an old small church, and he turned it into a small basketball court. So I said, okay, that's the greatest workout ever, as you know. So I started to play. I started to get involved, and the third time I played, I tore a tendon off my foot, which retracted towards my ankle. And so I'm still recovering from this serious foot surgery where I have a cadaver tendon that had to be reconnected to my foot. It was a mess. So that was a message to me that I'm too old to play basketball.
It means keep working on the tan because you'll be any shape to get the good tan. And
I have nothing else to do. I had a boot on my leg for 9 weeks.
Yeah. So where are you mobility wise now, Mike? With the Eagles shut you down for about 8 months.
Well, I'm walking around without the boot now, and I have a small brace on that I can wear with a sneaker or a golf shoe. So I have been. I've played golf a couple of times. I'm getting back to it a little at a time, but it's not right yet. So it wasn't something I expected, but you just have to live through these kind of things.
Even with the bum wheel, he's going to be able to give you Eagle opinions aplenty, and we'll do so.
Yeah, that has nothing to do with my mouth, by the way, the foot.
Well understood. All right, Mike, and we got weeks before the season actually gets underway, but then it will. And Jalen Hurts will be the quarterback of the Eagles, and he is the most debated individual sports person in town right now as to how good he's going to be. Will he be the Eagles quarterback going forward? What do you need to see out of Jalen Hurts week one?
I just need to see a little more pocket poise, the ability to stand in there instead of getting his brain to tell him to break out of there. Now, that's beneficial because he does get some really key first downs when he does that. But I just kind of need him to complete some passes. The Eagles have gotten away with running the football, and they did it with kind of a simple formula, and I think it was aided by the schedule a little bit last year. But it's a passing league. I mean, let's face it. He's going to have to be better at that. His numbers weren't good. His rankings weren't good. So they've kind of given him a better platform to do that. And we'll see if it happens. I guess the reports early on aren't that great. So I don't know. This is a wait and see for me. I'm like right in the middle with Jalen Hurts. I don't dislike him, but he hasn't done enough to convince me that I'm comfortable with him leading this team to great heights.
Mike, bigger picture with Jalen Hurts. You know this organization, Jeffrey Lurie believes, and as you said, this is a passing league, and he wants to have a high-octane passing offense. But there are other ways to win, and, most recently, the San Francisco 49ers probably point that out. They got to a Super Bowl. They probably should have won that Super Bowl. They kind of lost it late. They nearly got back to another Super Bowl. And Jimmy Garoppolo is not good. They have a smaller margin of error, but they managed to get to where they got with that smaller margin of error. Are the Eagles doing a disservice to Jalen Hurts by saying, go become a pocket passer instead of building around him like the Baltimore Ravens do with Lamar Jackson? In other words, fine, go get the pocket passer if you can get the pocket passer. But when you have the unique skill set, build around the unique skill set.
It's a good point. I don't. First of all, I think that teams that win the way the 49ers won are more the exception than the rule.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, it can work. I get it. But I didn't think the Eagles asked him to be a pocket passer last year. I think they asked him at first, and then they realized that wasn't going to work. It wasn't the best thing they do. So they went in another direction. Now, whether they're going to evolve, Frank Sirianni Nick Sirianni is a passing coach, and I think that he wants to see Jalen Hurts be that kind of guy. So I don't think they're going to follow the same script. I think getting A.J. Brown is an indication that they want to be more diversified throwing the football. So we'll see what happens.
Mike, I want to get your opinion on another guy who's going to get a lot of attention this year from Eagle fans. And I want to see if that attention is going to rise to the level of former standouts on their side of the ball. I'm talking about Jordan Davis on the defensive line with the Eagles. The Eagle beloved defensive lineman, and you've been around and following this team for long enough that you know what Reggie White meant to the Eagle defense and Eagle fans. And Jeremiah Trotter and Brian Dawkins, all-time great, all-time most popular Eagle defensive guys, put up plays that you could record as stats, sacks, big-time hits, interceptions, and the like. Jordan Davis isn't going to be a stat guy, but he's got a chance to be a dominant guy. Will the Eagle fans acknowledge what Jordan Davis does, even if it doesn't add up as far as tackles or sacks or hits that you're going to see on ESPN for 3 weeks thereafter? They went up to get him in the first round. They think he's going to be a dynamite player. Will Eagle fans understand the kind of contribution that Jordan Davis is going to make to the Eagles?
Yeah, I think they will. I think Eagle fans are pretty smart to see a guy play at a certain level, whatever. Even if he's not getting to the passer, whether he can block things down in there. And I think he's going to do that. I think the rotation, listen, they really did a good job improving positions that they needed to improve on defense. And the only question now is whether Jonathan Gannon is going to be able to utilize him. I mean, I don't know from Jonathan Gannon either. He's like in the Hurts category. I have to see a little more on how he's going to utilize these guys now that he's got better talent. There are a lot of people that are down on him. Listen, he's got a pretty good linebacker core now. He's very versatile in that position. That was lacking a lot. He's got rotation players on the defensive end. But Hassan Reddick's going to make a big difference there, however they choose to play him. So I think it's more Gannon, and Jordan Davis will find his way. I mean, he's a good player, and he's going to suffer rookie mistakes, obviously. But I think Eagle fans will realize that if you have a stout guy in the middle who can stop people or block offensive linemen and keep them in a position, they'll like it. They'll like that. He doesn't have to be Jerome Brown. But he could be somebody that they latch on to.
Mike, this team you mentioned has done. Howie had a good offseason. I mean, you got to give him credit for filling the obvious needs on this particular team. On paper, I always say from 2 to 53, they look pretty good. You don't know about the quarterback, but they look pretty good when you compare them to the rest of the league from a roster standpoint. So take Jalen Hurts out of the conversation for a minute. What would be your biggest concern about this team outside of the obvious, and whether they can take that next step as that passing offense?
I keep going. I can't take Jalen Hurts out of the equation because to me he's the whole thing. It's almost like saying like how good are the Sixers going to be?
So are they well? Then I'll go this way with you. Are they a legitimate Super Bowl contender if Jalen Hurts can be a top 10 quarterback in this league?
I think they're a little short of that. A legitimate Super Bowl contender. I think they can be a legit playoff team. I'm not sure I'm willing to commit to that they're good enough to win the Super Bowl. There's a lot of moving parts. A lot of new players have to really get adjusted. I don't see teams that throw a bunch of good new players in there and blend right away. But listen, their cornerbacks were shaky, and they got Bradbury, who's I thought a tremendous asset. They've got one weak safety position, depending on how he's going to use his linebackers. I think they can cover these linebackers that he's got out there, so I think that's going to help. There are two formulas here. Either their defense is going to be good enough to get away with Jalen Hurts just playing like an average quarterback, or Jalen Hurts is going to have to take a step up. And I don't know where to go yet until I see that. Man, and another factor is Miles Sanders. Like, he's a Penn State guy. He's a man after my own heart. But like Miles Sanders, I think, thinks he's a lot better than he really is, and that bothers me. Yeah. He hasn't been a guy that you can rely on to catch the ball out of the backfield. He seems to be wounded when people don't think he's a great player. To me, he's a key as well. He's got to deliver for them, but he's got to catch the ball out of the backfield, which will help Jalen Hurts a lot. And I don't know if he has that.
You beat me to my question. I was going to say the unabashed Penn State fan Mike is not afraid to call the players out. He always backs the university, but if the players don't live up to reputations, he's not afraid to put them on blast if necessary. And yeah, Miles a little whiny this preseason, running with the second team reps, got annoyed, got bent out of shape. I mentioned this with John and Martin Frank. We had him on earlier. They don't ever use him down by the goal line. They didn't last year. They're not using him in practice this year. He's playing for a contract this year, and he's not going to get any touchdowns again. 2 years running with no touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point.
The ball this year.
That's a great point. He's not reliable enough in those kind of situations. Then what really is? He reminds me a lot of Brooks Koepka in that, like, Brooks Koepka is always whining about not getting respect. And he's a good golfer, but he's not Jack Nicklaus. And Miles Sanders talks about himself like he's Barry Sanders sometimes. So I don't know. He's a key for me as well. Now, they've got a decent rotation at running back, but if you can't use your main guy in certain situations, or you're afraid to throw the football to him on third down.
Well, yeah,
and 4.
I mean, well, Mike, think about this. So Miles is the lead back. Nick Sirianni went out of his way to say that. He had his kids up there with him yesterday and said, his one son, he was asked to compare his children to players. And he compared his one son to Miles Sanders. Then it was TJ Edwards. Then it was Darius Slay for his daughter, because she's got the big personality. And I said, well, those players should be comfortable. But I think about Miles Sanders. People always say what you just said. He's got to catch the ball better. Well, Kenny Gainwell's the third down back. Kenny Gainwell's the hurry up back. Kenny Gainwell is the goal line back, which I don't agree with even a little bit. Where the heck is Miles Sanders going to catch the ball? In the situations you want the running back to catch the football, they're projecting Kenny Gainwell to be on the field.
Well, that means they've bailed out on Miles Sanders, which is unfortunate. But he doesn't seem to understand that. Like, he doesn't understand that he has to improve that part of his game, and maybe they wouldn't do that. So, I guess they could be successful doing it that way. I would like my lead back to be like a Westbrook, like to be a versatile guy that you wouldn't have to worry about with rotations and such. So, to me, it's a key. And the other thing about Jalen Hurts, I'm probably the only one that's ever made this observation. He almost appears too serious for me. Like, he's so stoic and he's so within himself. Like, I would just like to see him loosen up a little bit, and maybe that would somehow give him more daring when he's out there to make that 3rd and 7 zip completion. But he's always, he's so serious. I don't know. Maybe that's not a factor.
He dances at practice. He's not serious. He's serious in front of us. So in press conference, he's just he's a flat line, just straight flat line. But he has fun in practice with the guys. He's dancing.
I just see him have fun in a game where he has that kind of dancing attitude and go, you know what, that 3rd and 7, that's not that hard of a throw. Boom, do it. But he seems just so within himself.
Interesting. Mike Missinelli here with us on Birds 365. All right, Mikey. You were writing about the team when Buddy Ryan was the coach. You and I were on WIP when Richie Kotite was the coach,
Ooh.
and every coach thereafter. We're now up to Nick Sirianni, and we've had different type of personalities, different strong suits, different weaknesses, and the like. What do you think Nick Sirianni will be as the Eagles coach over the next 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10? If you think he's got a little Andy Reid in him, what kind of future are we looking at as Nick
Well,
Sirianni, head coach of the
it's
Eagles?
funny because like a lot of people, I was kind of blown away that they had hired a guy who had that kind of Harry High School flair to him, and but the longer the season went on, he showed an ability to adapt and do what was necessary, and I thought his players played for him. I think he can get too carried away with the wearing the T-shirts of the players and doing all that, and that works as long as you're successful. The key is if it's not successful, what the players roll their eyes. But so far, I'm okay with him. Like I can't criticize him. I think right now I'm more optimistic about him as a good coach than not. But again, this is like work in progress, Jody. There's a lot of guys that haven't convinced me yet. It's Hurts, it's Jonathan Gannon, and in a large extent, it's Nick Sirianni too. So I think this year will be really a good year to find out a lot about a lot of people.
Kind of the stuff you mentioned, Mike. I called Nick the pander in chief, with the T-shirts and the Phillies gear and the Sixers gear, and I'm with you. I think it's over the top. You think there's a shelf life to that? I mean, I
There
also
is.
agree with that. I
Because
think
when
he
you
did a
lose,
great job.
there is. You know that,
Yeah,
right? You see it
yeah,
when you start losing. These guys going, this happy horse bleep, and they start rolling their eyes because all that players want is a plan that wins. And if you have a plan that wins, you can wear Mickey Mouse T-shirts.
yeah.
It doesn't really matter.
Yeah. The adjustment part I thought was really, really impressive. Shifting gears in season because a lot of coaches don't do that. They pound the
Yeah, and
square
in
peg
the
in round
face,
hole.
by the way, of management.
Yeah,
Because that management didn't want them to go that way.
yeah. Now there are some other troubling things. Like if I told you the Eagles were 32nd in the NFL using motion, and this guy was supposed to be the young, innovative head coach, what does that tell you?
It tells me he really didn't have a lot of faith in his quarterback. I think they look at Hurts and say, okay, here's the way we have to play with him. Let's not get it overcomplicated. You're right. Every team that the Eagles played seemed to play with more motion than the Eagles did. It was very, very basic the way they attacked on offense. And I just thought that he didn't have faith enough in his team to do a lot of those things because he had shifted from trying to do that to this. So I think I'm hoping that you see more of that this year with his offensive attack. Now, he's not calling plays this year, so I don't know if that'll make a difference.
All right, if we're giving Nick Sirianni credit for in flying in the face of probably what management wanted and going to a running established game last year and watching it work and make the playoffs, how much gravitas has Sirianni built up? Because we are about 25 days away from them having to cut this roster down. The draft picks, Howie brought in, the free agents that Nick Sirianni may have had a hand in on, Mr. Food Poisoning himself, Dak Pascal, finally made it out onto the field yesterday. Howie's got control of the roster, but he does from time to time give some of that up. How much collaborative effort do you think is going to go into cutting this 53-man roster down? How much say does Sirianni have?
It's a really good question. I watched Jeffrey Lurie a lot in the box last year, and it was like, yeah, they were winning, but I could see like some wheels turning in his head. They're not winning the way I want them to win. So I don't think they're going to back on. I don't think they've given Sirianni the gravitas to say, all right, just be a running football team. I think they hired him under the notion that this would be a pass-heavy attack, and they better get there. And 1 year was fine, but let's progress. Because maybe they've been on the record loudly about what they want to do as a passing offense.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't think that he's won them over in 1 year. I think they hired a guy who they knew that they could kind of mold the way they wanted to play football. That's how he got the job. I was stunned that he got the job with that kind of personality and that kind of. I can imagine the interview process, and they must have looked at him like, this is a guy who will play along. So I think that's what's going to happen.
But to a certain degree, I don't think he did play along last season, as you mentioned, by shifting
Yeah, because it
gears.
was an emergency.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when he gets in season, he basically, I give him credit for it. Then he's going to do what he has to do to win a football game, which I think is the way to go about it. It's interesting to me. You mentioned the play calling. He didn't last a half season with as the play caller. He was brought in as the play caller. Jody knows I'm a big fan of CEO coaches. I think it makes more sense than guys who are sort of supercharged offensive coordinators or supercharged defensive coordinators. I looked at that as a positive. Did the Eagles look at that as a positive? As a CEO coach who said, you know what, this is too much. I'm going to take a step back. I'm going to hand the play calling off to Shane Steichen. I'm going to oversee the whole thing. Do you think that's a positive in Jeffrey Lurie's mind or a negative?
I like it, like both of you guys. Yeah, I don't really like the offensive coordinator, head coach type of thing. But Andy Reid was their template, so I don't know. I think that maybe it was suggested to Nick that he maybe should step away. He was a young coach. I thought that maybe they thought that was too much on his plate, and they suggested, hey, well, let's try it this way. You brought this guy in. You have faith in him. I want you to oversee the whole thing because you're that type of coach. You're an overseer of everything. Like some head coaches are an overseer of defense or special teams or whatever. I think that guy's communication skills can translate that way better than having his face buried in a play chart all game.
Mike, I know everybody at JAKIB Media is psyched to have you part of the team and be on the Eagle post-game show on Sunday with a pretty damn good crew. What are you most looking forward to?
I'm really psyched to do it. It kind of came.
We lose, Mike. You lose. I
out of nowhere
I got
and going to be involved. I go, wow, that seems like an interesting because we're all different, and I think this is the first time, Jody, where I don't have to pontificate. Because I could just kind of play moderator. I've got a guy who's very familiar with the inner workings of the organization, D Gunn, and I got the opinionated guy over here. And I could just say 2 words to Seth and just 15 minutes it goes on. In fact, we did a press conference to introduce the show at 6 ABC Studios, and I found a way to get to Seth like right away. He made a statement about the Eagles defense really not having any leaders at all. And so, first of all, the first name that came to my mind was Fletcher Cox. So all I did I turned to him and I said, Fletcher Cox. And he went off for 15 minutes about Fletcher Cox.
There we go.
Why he's not the best leader possible. So I go, I have found the formula. There it is. I'll just tweak him and let him go. So it's going to be fun.
At Mike Miss 25, follow Mike on Twitter, MikeMiss.com if you want to see what he's up to. You said you don't have to pontificate with Seth and D Gunn, but I'm going to get you to pontificate one last thing here. That's Deshaun Watson, the NFL, how this situation has unfurled. Sue Robinson coming down with her decision, the NFL stepping in. This league is a mess to me on personal conduct issues. It always has been. They created this system to take the sort of fulcrum off them, and they got right back in it and made it a bigger problem. Is that your take, or do you see it a different way?
Yeah, well, it's a bigger problem only in that I think that this arbitrator is really under pressure to increase the suspension, which I heartily agree with. I think he should be suspended for the whole year. He probably won't be, but this guy I think will bump it up a little bit. Judge Robinson's ruling, when I looked at it legally, that her her difference was there wasn't any violence involved. I thought it was a really flimsy rationale to justify a 6-game suspension. So I really thought it was a faulty ruling, and I think that's really where the focus is going to be when this guy gets in an arbitration. He knows that the NFL wants him to bump it up.
Mm-hmm.
So he's not. I don't think he's going to just say, "No, I affirm the 6 games." I think we're going to see more activity with it, and then of course we're going to get player association backlash and all that because they're forced to unbelievably defend Deshaun Watson. So yeah, you're right. It's not over. It's not. You know what? 12 games. That's what I think. I think he's going to double it.
Yeah, I'd sign on with 12. The NFL seems to be pushing for a full year, but if they move it up to 12, it might be a decent compromise position. I'm with you on that, Mike. Mike and I work together at 2 different radio stations. But one thing that Mike never shared with me, and it did more so knew after I had left our last station working together, was General Knowledge Wednesday. I gotta tell you, Mike, if I'm in the car and you're doing it, I play along every single time. I either get ticked off because I get it wrong, or it's too easy a question. Where the hell did he come up with that? You got me. You sucked me in on General Knowledge Wednesday. Did you come up with those questions, or did you have a helping hand?
No, I get the question. I had a secret website that I didn't give any, that I kept a secret. And I tapped into that every week. And then I added some of my own. Like I would find board games or I would find a sports book or whatever. I would like a food and wine book. And I would just mix in my own stuff. And and everybody played along. That was the key. The audience played, not the caller, but the audience also playing along.
Oh, you sucked me in. Oh, yeah.
Was the hook for the
show.
Got me. But how many times did you say, how stupid is that guy? He couldn't
get that all the time, on a regular basis. That's why I wanted to know, how much time and effort did you put in? If you had a good website you could lean on, that makes sense.
I had a website, but I also had other stuff that I would, like I try to do 4 categories a show, just to keep it diverse. And so I would have papers here and a pile here, and then a website here on my computer and things like that, just to make it diverse. And I always try to make it not difficult, like not as difficult, like, brain surgery type questions, like modern culture questions, real easy history questions or whatever it was, because I wanted everybody to get it. It's not fun if nobody's getting a right answer. But nobody was. So we had to put it over under. We put it over under every week.
And if you want to wind Set Joiner up, hit him with a tough general knowledge question. Oh,
I think I'll make that part.
He may hit you with a forearm shiver if you go there, but it'll make for great streaming. I can guarantee you that.
Yeah, that's what I told D Gunn. I said, listen, if you see that fire in his eye, step in, because I don't want to get clocked on the air here.
Keep Devin on the outskirts. That would be pretty smart.
Yes.
I would think. Mike, great stuff. We appreciate you coming on. If you'd be so kind, we will ask you to jump on from time to time during the year so that after you get to play moderator on Sunday, we'll get you more involved and get your opinions wholeheartedly during the season as it plays out. If you are willing to, we'd love to have you on play.
That's no problem, Jody. Good to see you. Good to see you, John. I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
Thanks,
Our pleasure. Mike Missinelli, who will be...